A security guard was alone on his night shift when the wheelchair in the empty corridor started moving by itself, slowly, deliberately, toward him. And there was absolutely no one else in that building. Hospital security cameras were installed to protect patients. Instead, they've been capturing something that medical science flatly refuses to explain. From corpses sitting up in morgues to glowing figures standing directly behind unsuspecting nurses, the footage you're about to see has been analyzed, debated, and never fully debunked. Join us and let's discover what hospital cameras captured that left everyone speechless. Let's go. Number 13. Castlefield House, Manchester. It started at the stroke of midnight on November 1st, 2012, and the timing alone should make your skin crawl. Security monitors at Castlefield House in Manchester, England, were being watched by a live team when something completely unexplainable began unfolding on their screens. Inside one of the empty office rooms, paper documents suddenly launched themselves into the air, flying across the room as if hurled by invisible hands. Then the chairs started moving. Then the doors began slamming, hard, with zero visible cause. Nobody was in the building, not a single person. The footage was released to the public and exploded across the internet almost immediately, with paranormal enthusiasts calling it one of the clearest poltergeist events ever recorded on CCTV. A poltergeist, for those unfamiliar, isn't your classic floating ghost. It's a specific type of paranormal phenomenon characterized by objects being violently thrown and manipulated. Think of it like an invisible, deeply angry entity throwing a tantrum inside your home. Skeptics pushed back hard, pointing to near-invisible strings, off-camera manipulation, and possible post-production editing. And they have a point. No police report was ever filed, no independent forensic analysis of the video was ever published, and no official body ever confirmed the footage is authentic. But here's what the debunkers couldn't fully answer. Why would a legitimate Manchester business stage something like this, risk their professional reputation, and never come forward to claim credit? The silence from the building's management only deepened the mystery, and the footage still circulates today, completely unresolved. Number 12. Hospital External Window. This one stands out from most entries on this list because it happened during daylight, and daylight removes a significant number of the atmospheric explanations that nighttime footage allows. Security cameras covering the exterior of a hospital building captured a completely ordinary-looking scene. The outside of the building, quiet, no foot traffic, nothing unusual. Then a section of window simply fell. Not shattered from impact, not broken from a projectile, fell, as if the frame had been pushed cleanly outward by hands pressing from inside. Except the footage shows clearly that no one was inside that section of the building at that moment, at least not visible through the glass. The surrounding environment is extremely telling. Other objects in the area, signs, plants, lightweight fixtures, show absolutely zero movement. There is no wind event, there is no vibration shaking the building. The window section doesn't crack and then fall from structural failure. It drops, clean and sudden, the way an object drops when a deliberate force is applied to it. Think of it like someone placing their palm flat against the glass and pushing, except nobody is there. Paranormal enthusiasts latched onto this immediately as evidence of a kinetic supernatural event, physical force applied by an entity without physical form. Structural engineers would point to latent frame failures, undetected material fatigue, or installation defects that can cause sudden collapses without warning. Both explanations are theoretically valid. What makes this video uniquely compelling is the complete and total absence of any environmental trigger visible in the footage itself. No wind, no impact, no person. Just a window that decided, on its own, to fall.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this. Number 11. Hospital External Gurney and Light. A hospital security guard was stationed outside the building near a section used for equipment storage. A gurney was parked nearby. Standard, unremarkable, the kind of object you walk past at every hospital on the planet without giving it a second thought. The guard was alert, professional, doing his job exactly as he was supposed to. Then, the gurney moved. Not a small vibration, not a slight wobble from uneven ground. It pushed forward, with clear intention, at the exact same moment that a burst of intensely bright light appeared in the frame directly beside it. The light had no apparent source. It didn't come from a passing vehicle sweeping its headlights across the area. It didn't come from the building's exterior lighting system. It materialized in a location where, according to everything visible in the frame, a light source simply could not exist. and then it stayed, illuminating the area for a brief, deeply strange moment while the gurney continued its movement. The guard reacted the way most rational humans would react when a large piece of hospital equipment moves on its own while surrounded by mysterious unexplained light. He left immediately. Online commentary afterward divided sharply between two camps, those who accepted wind as a natural explanation, and those who pointed out that nothing else in the frame, not a single leaf, piece of paper, or loose cable, showed any movement consistent with wind strong enough to push a wheeled metal gurney across pavement. The simultaneous appearance of the unexplained light source was the detail that truly resisted any clean, rational answer, and kept this video circulating for years.
Number 10. Hospital Room White Apparition. Hospital security footage captured something in an empty patient room late at night that even the most committed skeptics found genuinely difficult to immediately rationalize. The room was unoccupied, lights were dim, a gurney sat in the center of the space, exactly where it had been left at the end of the last shift. Then, moving from one side of the room to the other, a white mass, roughly human in shape, roughly human in height, drifted across the frame. It wasn't moving the way smoke moves or the way light reflects. It moved with what appeared to be direction and purpose. It crossed toward the gurney, lingered near it, then retreated toward the opposite wall before disappearing entirely. It didn't walk. It didn't float in the theatrical movie ghost sense. It simply transitioned through the space in a way that felt deliberate, like something searching for something it couldn't find. The video was shared across paranormal communities with the claim that no editing had been applied and that the footage was pulled directly from the camera's original storage. Skeptics, applying completely reasonable logic, pointed to potential lens flare, internal camera reflections, or sensor artifacts that can produce blob-shaped anomalies in low-light CCTV conditions. These are valid technical explanations, but what those explanations consistently struggle to account for is the apparent directionality of the mass, the way it moved toward a specific object and then deliberately changed course. Camera artifacts don't exhibit goal-oriented movement. They don't approach gurneys and then back away. The footage was never submitted to independent video analysis, and the hospital was never publicly identified.
Number 9. Hospital Corridor Ghost Light. This one is subtle, and that's exactly what makes it so deeply unsettling. A woman was alone in a hospital corridor at night, taking a quiet moment in what was otherwise a completely empty hallway. She wasn't anxious, she wasn't rushing. She stopped near a door with a reflective mirrored surface and used it casually, the way anyone might after a long shift, checking her hair, her appearance, a brief and entirely human moment. She was completely unaware of what the security camera positioned behind her was recording in real time. Above the water fountain directly behind her, in a spot where there was absolutely no light fixture of any kind, no ceiling mount, no wall sconce, no emergency lighting unit, nothing, a powerful white light source appeared. It wasn't a reflection bouncing off an existing fixture. It wasn't a camera flash from her direction. It materialized in a location where, according to the physical layout of that corridor, a light source could not exist. And then it simply stayed there, burning steadily, while the woman continued fixing her hair completely unaware. She finished what she was doing and walked away. The light remained after she left, continuing to illuminate a space with no lamp, no power source, and no fixture capable of generating it. No explanation for the light source was ever formally offered. The woman never saw it. The camera recorded everything, and the light stayed on long after she was gone, as if it had absolutely nothing to do with her presence at all.
Number 8. Hospital Car Park Apparition. A man was walking through an enclosed hospital corridor connecting to the parking structure, one of those covered pedestrian passages where the building meets the car park, when he noticed something deeply wrong with his own vehicle. His car was visible at the far end of the corridor, parked exactly where he had left it, but the passenger seat was not empty. On video, the shape is visible and immediately disturbing. What appears to be a woman seated in the passenger side, moving up and down in a rhythmic and completely unnatural way, rising and falling repeatedly, with a quality of movement that felt wrong in a way that's hard to articulate but impossible to ignore. He approached the car. He opened the door. The seat was completely empty. Nothing was there. Now here is the detail that separates this footage from virtually every other viral paranormal clip. He didn't stop filming. He stepped back from the car, deliberately repositioned himself at the exact same distance and angle, and filmed again. The figure reappeared. Same seat, same movement. He repeated this multiple times, and each time he stood at distance, the figure was clearly visible. Each time he opened the door, the seat was empty. The leading rational explanation is a sophisticated optical illusion, a specific combination of corridor lighting, the car's interior reflective surfaces, and the camera lens creating a persistent visual artifact mimicking a human form. It's plausible, but the consistency of the effect across multiple deliberate test attempts is genuinely difficult to fully explain away.
Number 7. Cordoba Children's Hospital. In 2017, a nurse working the night shift at a children's hospital in Cordoba, Argentina, pulled out her phone and started filming a quiet hallway. And what she captured became an international incident. The corridor was nearly empty. A small hospital bed was pushed against the wall. Then the nurse's voice broke the silence on the recording. "Esta, come here. Look behind the bed." On camera, partially visible behind the frame of that small bed, was what appeared to be the silhouette of a child. Small, completely still, then gone. The nurse reported that other staff members had been experiencing strange incidents in that same section of the hospital for weeks before the video was taken. Unexplained sounds with no identifiable source, the persistent feeling of being watched during night shifts, equipment found moved between shifts with no explanation. The video spread globally within days, and the reaction was split clean down the middle. Half the viewers claimed they could clearly see a small boy crouching behind the bed and then retreating. The other half saw nothing but shadows and camera distortion caused by poor lighting conditions. What makes this case particularly devastating isn't just the footage, it's the context. Children's hospitals carry an unbearable weight. Not every small patient makes it home. And according to the nurse, whatever was behind that bed hadn't appeared just once. It had been appearing for weeks, observed by multiple members of staff in the same location at the same hours. Hospital administration released no statement. No supernatural phenomenon was officially acknowledged. The footage has never been conclusively explained.
Number 6. Hospital corridor lurking figure. A woman was walking alone through a hospital corridor late at night when she felt it, that specific, primal, skin-crawling certainty that she was not alone and that something behind her was watching her every step. She didn't run, she didn't scream. She pulled out her phone and started filming behind her as she walked, and what the camera captured immediately and completely justified every instinct she had. In the corridor behind her, partially concealed behind a structural support column, a figure was watching her. It wasn't moving openly or wandering aimlessly. It was hiding, or at least behaving with the precise deliberateness of something that hides, staying behind cover, shifting position only slightly, showing just enough of itself to suggest full awareness and intentional concealment. As the woman moved forward through the corridor, the figure adjusted its position in response, staying behind objects, tracking her movement from cover to cover. She sent the video directly to her sister the moment she reached safety, and her sister posted it publicly within hours. The internet's reaction was massive and completely divided. Some viewers were immediately convinced it was a ghost, a spirit trapped in the building observing the living out of habit or confusion or longing. Others argued it was simply a patient or visitor behaving erratically, perhaps disoriented, perhaps mentally unwell. What nobody could adequately explain was the figure's behavioral pattern, the calculated way it maintained cover, and the apparent deliberate tracking of the woman's movement. A confused patient stumbling through a corridor at night doesn't hide behind columns and peer around corners with apparent intent. Whatever it was watching her with directed, focused attention.
Number 5. Hospital corridor wheelchair solo. A lone wheelchair, a completely empty hospital corridor, a security camera recording everything in crisp, clear footage. At the start of the clip, the wheelchair is stationary, parked at the edge of the hallway, not touching any wall, not leaning against anything, sitting exactly as hospital wheelchairs sit when they're waiting to be used. Then it moves. Not a gentle roll from a slight floor incline that you might rationalize away in a second. A distinct, purposeful movement that carries it several feet across the hard floor before it stops cleanly in the center of the hallway, positioned exactly as it would be if someone had just parked it there deliberately and walked away. To put that distance in perspective, it covered roughly the length of a dining room table on its own with no visible push. Now here's the detail that truly elevates this clip above standard paranormal footage. A healthcare professional is visible in the same corridor, moving in the opposite direction, and they don't notice a single thing. The chair moves behind them, silent and self-directed, while they go about their work completely unaware, clipboard in hand, steps away from something with no rational explanation. The healthcare worker's total obliviousness is somehow the most disturbing detail in the entire clip. Skeptics point to HVAC air currents, undetected floor gradients, or vibrations from nearby hospital equipment as possible causes. But wheelchairs are specifically engineered with locking mechanisms designed to prevent exactly this kind of spontaneous movement in clinical environments. If the locks were engaged, the chair could not roll. Full stop.
Number 4. Hospital corridor gurney and door. Imagine you're alone in a hospital corridor at 3 in the morning. The hallway is completely still. A gurney sits parked against the wall near a closed door. Nothing is moving. The silence is total. Then the gurney begins to roll. Slowly at first, almost hesitantly, then with clear and building momentum, moving as if being pushed by someone walking steadily alongside it. The door directly beside it swings open. A beat passes, then it closes. Then the gurney stops, perfectly repositioned in the corridor, as if whoever had been pushing it had passed through the door and simply moved on to wherever they were going next. This exact sequence was captured on hospital CCTV and shared online to enormous and immediate reaction. What makes this footage genuinely difficult to dismiss is the internal logic of the sequence. The events follow a coherent, purposeful pattern. Gurney moves, door opens for it, door closes behind it, gurney stops. Random mechanical failures don't follow narrative logic. A door doesn't open because a gurney happened to roll nearby. These two events happening in immediate and coordinated sequence, in an empty corridor, in the middle of the night, creates the unavoidable impression of a physical presence moving through the space, interacting with its environment in a completely ordinary way, as if it had simply forgotten it was dead. Hospitals are among the highest mortality locations on the planet. Thousands of people take their final breath inside these buildings every single year. The weight of that fact is impossible to ignore when you watch this footage.
Number 3. Hospital morgue moving body. A young female morgue worker, approximately 20 years old, was preparing for a routine procedure. Morgue work is never easy to imagine from the outside, but for trained professionals, the clinical environment eventually becomes exactly that, routine. She was composed, focused, doing her job. Then the body on the gurney in front of her moved. Not a subtle settling of cooling tissues that you might second guess. Not a slight shift that your brain could negotiate into something benign. A clear, visible, sudden, and unmistakable movement. The kind that registers in your peripheral vision before your conscious brain has had a single millisecond to rationalize it. She recoiled violently. In recoiling, she struck her knee hard against the sharp metal edge of the gurney, hard enough that she required physical assistance from colleagues afterward. The footage was released and viewed tens of millions of times across multiple platforms. The internet divided sharply, as it always does. But here is where the science enters, and it is genuinely more disturbing than any paranormal explanation. Bodies move after death. This is documented medical fact. Muscle spasms driven by residual electrochemical activity, gas buildup and release during early decomposition, and ligament contractions as tissue rapidly cools can all produce sudden and startling movement in a recently deceased body. Forensic pathologists have confirmed this repeatedly in peer-reviewed literature. The young woman's terror was completely understandable. Her reaction was entirely human, and the phenomenon the video depicts, whether that specific footage was authentic or not, is medically, scientifically, disturbingly real.
Number 2. COVID Morgue, Russia. On January 24, 2022, security camera footage from a morgue in Tver, Russia, began circulating online, and it showed something that the human brain genuinely struggles to fully process even after multiple viewings. A body, lying flat on a morgue table and covered with a standard white sheet, suddenly begins to move. The hands shift first, fingers curling, arms adjusting, as if consciousness is returning from somewhere very far away. Then the sheet is slowly, deliberately pulled away from the face. Then, with effort that looks exhausting and painful to watch, the figure begins pushing itself upright. The movement is not the sudden jerk of a spasm. It is slow, struggling, and purposeful, the movement of something trying very hard to get up. After what seems like an agonizing amount of time, the person is sitting fully upright, then standing, legs visibly trembling like a newborn animal taking its first steps, which, in the most disturbing possible sense, is exactly what this was. One hand grips the edge of the gurney for support. The video cuts there. The claim attached to the footage was unambiguous. A man officially pronounced dead from COVID-19 had regained consciousness inside the morgue. Before you dismiss this entirely, understand that premature declarations of death, while extraordinarily rare in modern medicine, have been formally documented. The condition even has a clinical name, Lazarus syndrome, where cardiac activity spontaneously resumes after resuscitation efforts have been abandoned. However, skeptics flagged serious problems with this specific footage. The room looked nothing like a functional morgue, brightly lit, large open windows, almost hotel-like in its cleanliness. Russian health authorities never addressed the video. It remains one of the most watched and most debated pieces of unexplained footage ever recorded in a medical setting.
Number 1. Hospital Wheelchair Night Guard. This is the one that closes the list, because unlike almost everything else you've seen today, this case has 2 separate layers of evidence: a human witness with a clear timeline, and footage that was captured not by accident, but by someone who already knew something was wrong before he ever pressed record. A hospital security guard took his responsibility seriously. He ran his rounds methodically, checking every corridor, logging what he observed. On one particular night shift, during his first walkthrough of the building, he noted a wheelchair parked on one specific side of an empty hallway, completely standard. He continued his rounds. When he returned to that same corridor on his second pass, the wheelchair was on the completely opposite side of the hall. Same corridor, different side. No patients had been moved through that wing, no staff had been present, nobody had any reason to touch that chair. He didn't panic. He did exactly what a thorough person does. He pulled out his phone, positioned himself with a clear view of the wheelchair, and started filming. What happened next was captured in full, unambiguous detail on video. The wheelchair, sitting completely still with nobody within 10 feet of it, began to move on its own. It rolled smoothly and deliberately across the corridor floor and came to a clean stop, as if someone had just sat down, rolled to a new position, stood up, and walked away. The guard didn't investigate. He ran. The video he posted online generated millions of views, but it was his written account accompanying the footage that truly disturbed people, because the chair had already moved once before he ever started filming. He didn't catch one impossible event, he caught 2, and the second one he was ready for.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.